Over the once many weeks, pressures along the Belarusian-Polish border have escalated, as thousands of shelter campaigners try to cross into Poland, a member of the European Union. Belarus's lax visa process has allured numerous people from war-torn countries in the Middle East hoping to make it to EU home. When Poland stationed its service to the border to stop the entry of shelter campaigners, thousands of men, women, and children were stranded in the deep freeze on the Belarusian side of the border and came a political football between Belarus and Poland. The extremity and the resemblant escalation of pressures between Poland, Belarus, and Russia have served governments on all sides in the pursuit of their foreign and domestic dockets. By now it's clear that the philanthropic disaster at the border was manufactured by Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who has been under warrants and in insulation by the EU since last time's defective presidential choices. The Belarusian authorities directed the inflow of shelter campaigners towards the borders of Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia, which have refused to accept the results of the vote and are presently hosting the bulk of Belarusian political deportees and members of the quasi government in exile. Lukashenko's desire to defy an open subversion of his governance by these countries is clear. But it isn't only its neighbors to the west that Minsk is seeking to press. The border extremity is part of its larger strategy to blackmail both the West and Russia with the prospect of a full-out global conflict. Belarus is the closest supporter of Russia and officially a part of in reality known as the Union of Russia and Belarus. The ultimate exists largely on paper, but it does give for a common defense policy and free movement between the two countries, which means the Belarusian border with Poland and the two Baltic countries is effectively Russia's external frontier separating its security zone from the realm of NATO. Thus, any conflict at this border by extension becomes a conflict between Russia and NATO, which is exactly how the far-right government in Poland is now trying to frame it. In a recent interview, Lukashenko also went as far as hanging to block the Yamal Channel, which supplies Russian gas to the EU via Belarus. On Tuesday, Russian news agency TASS reported that Belarusian Canvas Channel driver Gamel Transneft temporarily limited canvas inventories to Poland through the Druzhba Channel after starting unplanned conservation. Yet, numerous hawkish observers in the West and Eastern Europe have refocused a cutlet at Moscow as the agitator of the border extremity and claimed that Lukashenko's pitfalls must have been sanctioned by the Kremlin. Contemporaneously, elderly US officers made radical claims about Russia erecting up colors with the view of overrunning Ukraine. The sense of these allegations is hard to sound. Russia finds itself in the middle of a 4-month period, during which the German energy controller should certify Nord Stream 2 a channel that will deliver gas to the EU directly, bypassing Ukraine and Belarus. On Tuesday, news came in that Germany is suspending the instrument process on specialized grounds, a move that will further delay the design and will be interpreted by the Kremlin as a designedly hostile act. It remains unclear why Russia would want to carry a border extremity directly hanging Germany, where utmost shelter campaigners are heading, and contemporaneously foray Ukraine during this veritably period. Is Nord Stream 2 designed as a superweapon that will put Ukraine on its knees by depriving it of gas conveyance earnings, as the same hawkish observers have been claiming for times? If so, why foray Ukraine now? Again, the sense of provoking Russia into reckless jest with respects to Belarus and Ukraine in order to ail Nord Stream 2 looks more compelling. This would be in the interest of the US, which has tried to press Germany into abandoning the near-finished design. At least the Russian military figure up around Ukraine does appear to be a response to what Russia sees as the West crossing the red lines, which Russian President Vladimir Putin outlined before this time in his State of the Nation address. In an interview with Rossiya TV channel on November 13, he easily tied the figure up to the unscheduled appearance of American warships in the Black Sea, combined with flyovers by nuclear-able bombers on October 20. To the ultimate incidents, Russia responded by transferring its bombers to fly over Belarus in close propinquity to Poland. Ukraine has also seen an escalation of pressures. In October, reports surfaced of the Ukrainian army using Turkish-erected Bayraktar drones against Russian-backed forces in Donbass. There's also an ongoing legal attack against Putin's man in Ukraine, Viktor Medvedchuk, and the clampdown on his media conglomerate, which was indicted of promoting Russian narratives. Also, there's a Polish angle in the ongoing extremity. It serves as a useful distraction for the far-right Polish government, which finds itself entangled in a bitter conflict with the EU over the rule of law. Last month, Poland's indigenous tribunal abrogated some vitals of the EU treaty by ruling that they were inharmonious with the country's constitution. That decision is posing the topmost challenge to the integrity of the Union since Brexit. The extremity is also an occasion for the Polish government to present itself as a protector of Europe's borders against a perceived eruption from the east. It's also an occasion for the right-sect government to incite further internationalism in the Polish society. Racist anti-immigrant Jeremiads are a chief of Polish far-right politics. But while the Polish government is embracing anti-Russian rhetoric and posturing, its domestic politics nearly act the Kremlin's. In demeaning the rule of law and gradation a la undermining the independence of the bar, the ruling Law and Justice Party, PiS, seems to be taking a runner out of Moscow's playbook. As if copycatting Putin's strategy, it's also aggressively promoting traditional values, which includes homophobic legislation and excelling Russia on that front. LGBT-free zones declared in numerous cosmopolises as well as a flat ban on revocations. A favorite Kremlin tactic is supporting poisonous government-controlled media, which denigrates the opposition and circulates fakes commodity the PiS has also indulged in. The smokescreen of geopolitics has long allowed Poland and other countries in Eastern Europe to get down with their contraventions on popular procedure and mortal rights. They exceed in dealing Russia's mythological dissimilitude and its allegedly natural combativeness. The reality, however, is that Putin's governance, unrestrained by rule of law constraints that come with EU class, is just a grotesque illustration of the far-right authoritarian trend that's gulfing the entire East European region. The specter of a hostile Russia and trouble at Europe's eastern borders also benefits certain political diggings in the West. They give fodder to lobbyists and military artificial complex groups which promote conflict to encourage increased defense spending. They fuel divisions and fears of conflagration, undermining the work of those who authentically stand for advancing Republican leftism in post-communist spaces. This war assiduity is immortalizing totalitarianism, similar as Putin's and Lukashenko's, by constantly enduing them with openings to escalate truculent rhetoric and lift the rallying flag of a trouble against the nation. In the end, those who suffer the consequences of manufactured heads and escalations of pressures are ordinary people who have to bear the mass of far-right politics and war-centered husbandry.